welcome to the preview for the January Conspirators case, 2023. And yeah, it's first one of the year. Brilliant. So we kick off with brand new wine. Never bought this before. Well, actually, it's been in the warehouse for about 6 months, but it's been around 6 months. And it's Cantina Sangro. And Sangro, quite interesting. So it's a cantina that is just to the south of the Frentana, who we bought for years. And Frentana have had a relationship with Sangro for some time, but Sangro, we're a slightly failing co-op, and they've combined with Frentana. It's not so much a takeover; it's a merger where they've essentially pulled the winemaking skills. So Gianni from Frentana is now making the Sangro wines. What's great about Sangro? It's in a beautiful valley. So the vineyards are in a great spot. It's a small cooperative, so 100 or so members. And the vineyards are largely following the river Sangro. And it's one of those places where they've always planted the indigenous varieties. So there's only Montepulciano, Passarina, Pecorino. There's some Cococciola, though it isn't labelled and bottled as Cococciola just yet, but we're quite looking forward to it. And we thought we'd kick off with the Pecorino because it's a really good one. There's some old vine there. It's high trellising, so it's quite traditional farming. The soils here are quite broken, sandy, with some limestone in there. South-facing, bit of altitude. They're getting lovely sea winds coming through. Really interesting wines. Very, very good. And Gianni's great, this wine. So it's what they're making here is something very clear with some tropical fruit to it. Lovely and dry. Lovely definitions. Really, really super wine. Then we've got a couple of wines from Cantina di Marzo. Now, Cantina's a funny old term, really, isn't it? Because you've got Cantina Sangro, where it's a cooperative, the Cantina, the cellar of Sangro. Cantina di Marzo, also the cellar of the Di Marzo family. It's easy to confuse the word cantina with a cooperative. It isn't always cooperative. It just means the cellar of. So in this case, it's the cellar of the Di Marzo family, one of the oldest winemaking families in all of Italy. They essentially invented the Greco di Tuffo, and this wine has appeared. I mean, I was looking to see how many times I've given you the Cantina di Marzo. And it started off back in, it's one of the first wines we did in Conspirators case, back in 2013. We gave you the 2013 vintage in 2015. We gave you the 17 vintage in 2019, and in 2020, the 2018 vintage. Now, this is the 2020 vintage in the first half of 23, so it's actually a tiny bit older than we've given it to you before. And that extra time I did want to hold this back and give it to you if it was possible. It was just where the vintages were falling, but they've just fallen perfectly. And the character of the wine has just changed that tiny bit. So the fruit becomes a little bit less in the foreground, and you're getting those lovely secondary flavors coming through, where it's almost becoming more candied lemon, more sage. I think I put kombucha on the sort of tasting note, which I'm not sure. I think I'm right, but it's more on the aromas. But you get it's a slightly different style of wine. So it's really fascinating. So really salty, so volcanic, these rocks, and it's for me it's one of the great wines that we sell. Also from Cantina di Marzo comes the Agliano, Irpinia. Irpinia is just the region. Agliano is a great type, and I love this wine, but it does need a bit of time. And this is 2018 vintage, brilliant vintage for this wine because it's very hot, so the tannins are under control, but there was also plenty of rain, so it's not overly concentrated, so you've got ripeness without that drying slight concentration you can get in the uber dry vintages. Aged largely in old barrels, and the reason I love this wine is it's grown in a really good position within the Greco di Tuffo vineyards. So these are old vines, these are over 50 years old, and they're giving great richness, but they shouldn't really exist. This is perfect Greco di Tuffo territory. So when you're in perfect Greco di Tuffo territory, and it's been made by arguably the most important of the Greco di Tuffo families, you wouldn't really expect to find Aglianico there. So at some point, maybe you'll rip the vines out. So this is one of those wines that you just want to enjoy as much as you can before it disappears. And the 18's an absolute delight. It's been beautifully stored. We've just kept it in the warehouse for you for the last basically 12 months. Actually, we've held this for you. So it's matured really, really nicely, and I think it's spot on. Really do. And then the last one, Le Cinciole. Love this estate. This is our sort of top Chianti estate. And this is Luca and Valeria, and they farm biodynamically. They make about 50,000 bottles. And Cincio Rosso is it's not really declassified Chianti because it's got too much of the non-authorized varieties to be called a Chianti. So the non-authorized varieties in this case are a bit of Merlot and a bit of Syrah. Quite often I frown on the use of Merlot and Syrah in Chianti. In this case, it's not a Chianti. It's just a beautiful red wine that was kind of developed as an easier drinking wine to utilize the younger vineyards. They're not that young anymore. The younger vineyards are over 10 years old. So, you've still got great complexity and you've got lovely richness to these wines. It's high altitude Pansano for a very, very reasonable price. And this is 19 vintage. The 19 vintage, it's a really special vintage. It's very classic. It's when I say classic's a strange word to use because what does classic mean? It was a hot vintage, but it was fairly normal. It didn't get uber hot. There wasn't too much rain. There was things came about the right time. It's a fairly normal vintage, what we would have called normal in the old days, and it's tasting great. Really lovely wine. It's drinking well now. You could age this for another 5 years without any problem at all. It's a really lovely case, this one. I hope you enjoy it. If you can join us for the tasting, please do. And just check the website for the tasting dates. We're just putting up the London ones now and starting to look at doing more serious tasting dates there next year. And these tastings, of course, will be free for you Wine Club members. If you're not a member of our wine club and you're just watching this preview for fun, do join up. It will be delighted to have you on board. Otherwise, get the little tasting box, which is just a small tasting measure. See what you think of it. See if you think the wines are up to scratch and whether it's worth joining or not. Hopefully, they'll be bowled over. I really like this case. Happy New Year to you all, and see you soon. All the best. Bye.